And we're live. Gen morning, everyone. Hello, and thanks for tuning in. Today we have two very special guests. I'm just cross-checking in parallel if we're really live on X, and we are. Okay, my name is Tony. I'm the head of content and community at GenLayer Labs, and today with us we have Albert, who is the CEO and co-founder of GenLayer Labs,
Hi.
and James, who is the head of growth and BD at Caldera. Happy to have you on, guys.
Thanks, Tony.
Thanks for having us, Tony.
Well, today is a very special day as we are unlocking AI-powered rollups with intelligent contracts. Last week we introduced, we kind of posted about our partnership with Caldera. So we're super excited to also today have in video and audio James and Albert talking about this partnership. And for all of you who are tuning in every Thursday, 2 p.m. UTC, as you know, we will at the end of this session again have a POAP mint. So I'm going to pass the secret passkey. You just need to download the POAP Home app. And then with the secret passkey that you can type in, you can either mint with wallet or with your email. That being said, and without further ado, I would like to hear what you guys have to say about the partnership. Before we go into that, maybe we can start with James on Caldera's side. If you could just summarize for those of our audience who haven't heard about Caldera, what Caldera does, and what you guys are doing in the crypto space.
Yeah. Thanks, Tony. Caldera, for those who don't know, is a rollup ecosystem that helps teams launch and manage their own chains that are both dedicated and opinionated in terms of their block space. And then we also help with connectivity and interoperability between Caldera chains and other big liquidity hubs. Really excited to work with GenLayer as one of those partners on the rollup side. And soon to be activating them on the MetaLayer side as well. That's basically the TLDR on Caldera.
Amazing. Albert, if you could introduce GenLayer to us.
Sure. Yeah. So basically, GenLayer is this like trustless decision-making protocol, right? So the way I'm normally pitching it right now is like, hey, you look into the legal systems in the world, right? Like it's already like pretty cumbersome, pretty slow. Like if you have a dispute, it can take hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars to get it resolved. It can take years to get something resolved, right? And if we've learned something from crypto is that if you try to automate some of the trust, you can actually create lots of efficiencies, right? And so what we're building is this type of synthetic jurisdiction, like a digital court system that can essentially resolve disputes and resolve contracts, such as, for example, going to the internet and going to make essentially intelligent decisions, right? So is this new type of protocol, this new DLT that uses AI at the consensus level in order to create this type of digital judge, right? And for the Web3 market, what it basically means is that it enables completely new applications and protocols that just right now were not possible, right? So we're used to smart contracts that can be self-resolving, but at the same time that they're just limited to code. They are isolated from the outside world. And then what GenLayer is essentially doing is that it will enable any other L1 and L2 to be able to go out to the internet natively, to go out to essentially digest unstructured data, generate code, execute the code, and essentially make subjective decisions, right? So yeah, plenty of new applications and protocols, and that's about it.
Yeah. For those of you who have tuned in last week, Eggers and I already talked about GenLayer's ZK Sync integration and how we're using rollups, what the important part on this is. Albert, maybe can you give like a short summary of what the connection is between Caldera ZK Sync, so that we kind of recap for everyone who wasn't here last week?
Right. So GenLayer is essentially like a network of networks, right? Like there's like multiple. There's one which is the GenLayer chain, right? That's a ZK Sync, ZK Stack rollup, right? And that is being run on a sequencer, and then there's provers that can look into everything being working well, right? That's where we need Caldera, right? There's the other ledger, the other networks as well, right? There's the overlayer, right? Which then anybody can run a node, and then these nodes essentially they communicate with each other, they pay each other, they essentially vote on specific transactions through the chain, right? So transactions are actually happening on the chain, like a banking layer, let's say, right? And then the decision-making layer is this over layer, right? This other network of 1,000 validators that are then connected through the rollup in order to essentially make decisions and vote on specific transactions, right? Now, we didn't want to reinvent the wheel, right? Like in the past, I've been part of different L1s, and I understand that there's tons and tons of work, right?
Yeah.
We wanted to really be focused on the innovation here, right? Which is the innovation? The innovation is there's all these different blockchains that right now are isolated from the outside world and are limited to like deterministic operations, right? So it's like very simple code, right? How can we essentially use AI to enable new types of applications, right? How do we enable them to make subjective decisions, to go to the internet, and so on, right? And so because we didn't want to reinvent the wheel, we wanted to rely on the most solid stack in order to do that. And the way we understand it, really, it's the ZK Sync stack plus Caldera in order to get the best type of sequencing, the provers, like essentially get the solid RPC infrastructure as well, right? And all the different aspects that we're going to be discussing in this call.
Yeah, thanks, Albert. And if you could do me one favor, I can hear your notifications in the background. I don't know if you can mute them. That would be amazing. So we don't have the ping going on. Amazing. Thank you. If you're looking at this partnership now, James, I'm going to start with you. What does it unlock for Caldera?
Yeah, I think what it unlocks for us is the ability for anyone who's looking to come and use like intelligent contracts or access real world data to come and build on GenLayer. I think the way we think about Caldera, right, is having, I think like it's really two ways. Like one is for like any developer to come and help build their infrastructure so they can build a really great application layer and ecosystem. And the other is for users to come and find things that they want to do on chain throughout all the different Caldera chains that do exist. I think starting with the first one, it actually means, I think, two things. So it's not just like who does want to deploy a rollup, but it's also anyone looking to build something. Like, is there a place that already exists within Caldera's ecosystem to come build that? And I think that's something that GenLayer is really going to unlock and power with anyone looking to access these smart contracts that can power things that haven't previously been possible, whether it's things like prediction markets or something like that. And then from the user level, it allows them to kind of come in and then play with these applications that are on top of GenLayer. So I think like that's what is really exciting to us about the partnership with GenLayer and being able to be a really core integration and infrastructure partner. Is to help power that application layer. That's going to be really exciting, and that's going to unlock, I think, like things that if not haven't been possible, then at least will be powered by things that provide a better user experience through that.
Can you give context for those who haven't heard of Caldera before, how it works within the ecosystem? What is the big advantage if I want to build a dApp, I'm a developer? Why would I choose any like, let's say, chain any rollup on Caldera to build my dApp? What is the big advantage here?
Yeah, I think first and foremost is optionality. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of different ecosystems that exist within Caldera, right? Whether it's you want to build something within gaming or RWAs or NFT or metaverse or whatever it might be. So there's a lot of different sort of like verticals that exist within Caldera's ecosystem. And secondly, there's different stacks, different scaling solutions for anyone to come build on top of those things, right? So GenLayer, of course, is building with ZK Sync, ZK stack. We have folks that build with other stacks as well. So when you come to Caldera, at least, at bare minimum that any chain I decide to build with is scalable, but also I think more importantly is opinionated based on like what they want to build on chain. And I think like that's becoming more interesting for developers, right? Rather than going to deploy on a general purpose chain and being like, the third perp dex or, the third prediction market or the fifth game, they're able to come to Caldera, find their ecosystem and their chain that is really exciting for them, that really fits the sort of criteria that they want to build, both in terms of vertical and in terms of scalability. And like that exists, and that's why these things like this are really exciting, because it's bringing more optionality to developers that want to come in and build things. For example, on top of Gen Layer, when they want to unlock access to real world data and leverage their smart contract application layer, that's going to give them that opportunity to do so.
Amazing. I mean, Albert, we kind of delved into this a little bit with my previous question before, but what does this partnership bring to Gen Layer, and how do you see AI native rollup / intelligent contracts playing into it?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, like there's having the rollup be managed properly. That is obviously something that is very important for us, right? And I think that's why the main reason why we're working with Caldera. The other thing for us as well is you shouldn't be thinking about Gen Layer as another L1 or another L2. Like it's just not a competitor to other blockchains, right? What it is yes, it is a blockchain with a specific set of smart contracts on top that do things, right? But it's not the type of things that you normally would find on another blockchain, right? What happens here is that what you want is contracts on Solana, contracts on Base, contract on Era, like on Ethereum, doesn't matter. You want all of those contracts to then have new features, right? So the easier that it is to interconnect Gen Layer with any other blockchain, the better, right? Because then applications built on Gen Layer will immediately be enabled on all the other chains, right? And well, that's I think something that is a big benefit of using both the ZK stack and Caldera, right? Because that basically it already gives you the standard in order to have interoperability, in order to have tokens moving around, messages moving around, right? So it's not just about sending value, which is an important piece here, right? So like Gen Layer does the decision making, right? There's also like the chain, which is where this banking system, right? So that's where the stake is living, right? The fees are going, the appeals, and all these different things, right? But actually, assets will normally not be living on Gen Layer, right? We're not trying to move assets away from other chains into Gen Layer. We're trying to make it so that Gen Layer is the decision-making system that then is moving assets that are living somewhere else, right? So Jim said about the prediction markets, but you can have, from insurance to, different type of trade finance applications to, DAOs moving, proposals, for example. You can have escrows that can make intelligent decisions on whether someone did a piece of work or not, right? And that, imagine, for example, a bug bounty system where assets are escrowed by a contract, right? Let's say, on Solana, and then that escrow is intelligent enough that can see whether the bug was found or not, or fixed or not, if it was critical or not. It can read the code. It can essentially evaluate whether you found that bug, what is the how critical that bug is, and then it can decide to pay you for having found that bug, right? So that is the asset is living in Solana in this example, and then the decision making is happening on Gen Layer. We want to have as many bridges as possible, right? These are messages being passed around, decisions happening on Gen Layer, and then that is to me like the strategically speaking, right? Like what is the most important piece here, right? And I think that Caldera will help a lot on that front.
Yeah, it's. I mean, Caldera. We've heard a lot of the discussions around the meta layer, right? And like Edgar says, or actually you and Edgar Silbert have coined this term overlayer before, right? Can you maybe explain a little bit, because I know there's some people here that have asked about the overlayer before. Can you explain how it works and the whole idea of having interoperability and other applications, or actually applications built on any blockchain, kind of plugging into Gen Layer to more or less pull the intelligence that we offer?
I mean, there's a bit different dimensions, right? On one end is like how can you use Gen Layer, right? What for? And the other thing is how does it work, right? How it works is there is the Gen Layer chain, right? That's the ZK Sync stack. That's a rollup, right? Just a normal rollup, EVM. Like the gas will be the native token for Gen Layer, right? And then there is one or more consensus contracts that then different networks of computers can connect to essentially understand when they should be making decisions, right? So you can even have multiple, right? You can have permissioned ones, you can have permissionless ones. They can essentially it's a network of networks, right? You basically have that each one of those networks, right? Say, for example, there's a DAO wants to make a decision, right? Goes through Gen Layer, into the contract for the optimistic democracy consensus algorithm. There's 1,000 validators, permissionless, censorship resistant, anybody can participate there, right? Then it's those nodes that use that consensus to make a decision. That's the overlayer, right? So that's what like the overlayer is not really our term. It's a technical term, right? It basically tells you there's a network on top of another network in a way, right? So like this is what's happening here. Even you can have multiple of them, right? It's a layer on top of Zen layer itself. It's like both of them are really Zen layer, just different components of it on how it works. Yeah.
Okay, amazing. Now, James, looking at the technical integration, like maybe you can explain. Like we have a lot of our community members, Caldera's community members. Like, how does the integration work? I'm not a developer myself. There's going to be a few developers in here in the chat, essentially. But as deep as we can go on, how this integration works.
Yeah, definitely. And do you mean from the rollup side, or you're talking about the meta layer specifically, since we're talking about interop?
The integration to Caldera's rollup, yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So basically, for those who aren't familiar, right? Blockchains have really like three parts to them. There's the execution environment, there's the consensus mechanisms, and there's the data availability aspect. All a rollup and an L2 is it removes the execution environment from the L1 and allows it so that transactions that are sent through this execution environment are batched up and sent back to the L1 while inheriting consensus from that L1. So a rollup makes things very fast and very cheap for users to interact with. The execution environment, that is the piece that Caldera runs along with or leveraging the ZK stack. And for us, we run all of this infrastructure. We run the sequencers, we run the nodes, we run other auxiliary infrastructure like block explorers and bridges to really help power GenLayer's smart contract layer. So yeah, that's how the integration works. Is we're basically the underlying infrastructure to help power and run and manage the chain. Hopefully that makes sense. Let me know if you need me to go further, Tony.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense for me, and I would encourage everyone who has questions to shoot them in the chat, as we always do. I'll be happy to read them out loud. And actually, we have a question already in here, which is from Burgomister. How does the system ensure the trust model of Caldera doesn't compromise the integrity of GenLayer's AI-based governance? Whoever wants to chime in here.
Yeah, I can take that, I think. So, I mean, it's a different layer, right? So on one end, you have let's say the banking system, right? And that's basically the GenLayer chain, right? This is essentially a rollup. And therefore, this rollup, there's a sequencer that's essentially batching the transactions, generating the proofs, right? All these, the ones that are helping us manage this, right, is Caldera, right? Which has offering this rollup as a service system, where basically we don't need to be too worried about that. They're helping us make sure that is solid, right? They are a professional team helping us have this banking system work well, right? It's the combination of ZK Sync and Caldera that really makes this, right? Then the AI decision making, it's a different layer completely, right? So like it requires the contracts of knowing who should be speaking when and so on. That's a consensus, right? And this is a smart contract on the chain, right? So that we can track, okay, this node needs to be penalized. This node needs to be getting a reward, right? Like all the gas is happening on the banking layer, let's say, and then the decision maker, let's say the judiciary, right? That is the different validators which are running, GenLayer node, right? So that's a completely different code, yes, with a different execution environment as well. That's the GenVM, right? That are basically deciding, well, what they want to do, right? What they want to vote, what they want to propose, right? So the consensus says, you 1, 2, 3, you're the leader, you need to go fetch some information and then make a proposal to the other validators. And then the other validators, maybe they go, maybe they don't, but that is not happening on the rollup. That is happening on the overlayer, right? Yeah. And that's why it's a bit of a different dimension. It's not the typical architecture that you have on a blockchain, because blockchains are deterministic, right? Like this is how we bridge deterministic blockchains and non-deterministic internet, let's say, or natural language, right? That's through this voting mechanism.
Yeah. For me, it makes sense. But again, if anyone has a question, please shoot them in the chat. Happy to answer all of them. And actually, Vatan has a question. I love the questions following up, because they're actually showing you that the people are trying to understand, because on a technical level, it's very hard, right? Like, even for me, like, I know what we are doing and I understand what the partnership means, but I think it's also important for the people. So Vatan is asking, I wish both projects all the best for the partnership and a great AMA today. I think you meant live stream. Now my question, could you please explain your expectations regarding the partnership to me as if I were 10 years old?
You know, go for it, James?
Sure. Yeah. The expectations as if you were 10. I think it's to make I think it's to make GenLayer one of the most powerful places to build applications. Hopefully a 10-year-old would be able to understand that, but I'm actually not sure.
They understand applications for sure. Like my cousin, 10 years old, if you talk with him about applications,
that's true.
Oh my God.
That's true. That's true. So yeah, I think that's sort of the expectation, right? And hopefully through really great infrastructure, through ZK Sync and ZK Stack and Caldera, and then everything GenLayer has built, I think that's definitely possible. I think, like, if you go to GenLayer's, I think it's in their docs, and Albert, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's like a list of like 20 to 30 different ideas of things that can be built and powered with GenLayer. And I think starting to check some of those boxes and starting to see those boxes that are checked have powerful applications that are really used and are truly valuable to users. I think like that's the expectation of what we hope to accomplish together.
Yeah, amazing.
You know, when I got into crypto, well, I mean, a few years later, right? Like, let's say there's this thing called the DeFi summer, right? I remember then it was like every week there was something new, right? Every week or every day, right?
Oh,
Boom,
yes.
now there's Aave, now there's Uniswap, now there's like all these different things, right? And it was just fascinating. Every single week, some new toys, right? And it just like, it was like fascinating new toys that I could spend hours and hours trying to understand what the implications of that are like, where, you know, like, why cannot we do this in the old system? Why can we do those? Why can we have these toys in the new system? And, you know, actually, you know, were tons and tons of opportunities to make money, because these new toys, other people would want to buy them, and they, you know, were sort of collectibles, like superpowers, right? And everybody would want to have them and so on. My feeling right now is that I don't see new toys anymore, right? The toys are getting, you know, just like, it's lots of the same, just like copy paste and just the same stuff over and over and over again, right? So what I want is basically to have, you know, more toys, right? I want to be able to have people build new toys that are completely new, that I can actually, you know, buy, and I can collect them, and I can, you know, use them, right? And what Caldera is really doing is helping us create this toy factory. Now anybody can come in, especially with AI, because right now writing code is getting cheaper and cheaper every single day, right? And so everybody can come in, use GenLayer to essentially build new toys that you cannot build anywhere else, right? And that wouldn't be possible without Caldera, right? So yeah, I think that's my way of saying it, right? Like, let's try to make crypto great again. Let's build new toys, right? That's why we're all here, I think.
If generally is the computer people are working on to produce the toys, Caldera would probably be the, you know, assembly production line printing it out, right? And James, don't worry about the use cases. I know you mentioned 20 to 30 in the GenLayer docs. That's only what Albert decided to show the world. He has way more. Like, the 20 to 30 is just the beginning. There's, like, Albert, I don't know how many you got really, at the end, like 200?
Like, how many use cases does the legal system have? The existing legal system, how many use cases does it? Like, it's very difficult to put a number to that, right? Like, what's happening here is that, well, until now we've had smart contracts that were quite limited, right? We're trying to, you know, allow them to do more, right? And it's more like a court system, right? So, like, for example, right, like you looking at these AI agents coming online right now, like, you know, everybody's talking about them. There's going to be, you know, trillions of dollars of value being, you know, generated and moved around by them, right? How do they trust each other, right? Are they going to be hiring lawyers? Are they going to go to court? Like, can we give them essentially a legal system, right, where they can, you know, sign contracts that essentially have an embedded judge that can make decisions, right? So it can be just endless amount of things. It's just like, it's yeah, it's not like a narrow application, right? It's a general purpose machine, right? So yeah.
Okay, we have a few more questions. I'm just browsing through to see which questions make sense at this point. Let me see. Random. Another question. Are there plans to support token transfers, contract-to-contract interactions, or gas consumption in the GenLayer Studio when deployed on Caldera's rollup?
Yes, right? Just to add a bit more context to that, right? As I said before, the banking layer, right, is not really the decision-making layer, right? So the intelligent contracts are actually living on the overlayer, right? And then the assets are living on the chain, right? So we have this thing called ghost contracts, right? Which is every contract on the overlayer has a ghost contract, right? And so if you have, let's say a betting system, right? So we want to do, football bets, yeah? So what happens is that the assets are living on the chain, and then the decision making on whether, who won the bet is actually happening on the overlayer, right? So then that is like the assets are just moving on the chain, right? You don't need to have the assets on the decision-making system, right? And that is why the interoperability is so important as well, because then like you can just have that the decision-making is happening on the overlayer, and then the assets are actually living somewhere else completely, not even on the layer, right? So yeah, it basically means that it's not going to be just all the usage that we have within GenLayer. Any other blockchain that can connect to GenLayer will then have these new capabilities, and that will result, in transactions going through GenLayer at the end, right?
Yeah. Actually, yeah, people are writing that they understand the explanation. So I think you guys did a great job of going into the.
We're improving the studio very, very quickly, right? There's more and more features every week coming out, and like we're posting them on Twitter, on Twitter, right? And like I want to see more content on that front. Like I would suggest, just go to studio.genlayer.com and you will see what you can do right now. There's some tests there's some demos that you can see very easily, right? It doesn't take any time.
Yeah, I just wanted to go into this question, and maybe I'll start with James. Like, what's the typical, just a Caldera specific question, what's the typical, touch point of developers or users getting to work or get introed to Caldera? Like, how would they usually, reach out to you? Like, what are their needs? Like, do developers get in touch with Caldera at all? Because, for instance, in GenLayer's case, they will only transact later on testnet or mainnet, and probably don't even get in touch like directly with Caldera. Mm-hmm. So how does it usually work for you guys?
Yeah, we actually like to be really active here. We think it's really important to provide hands-on support for anyone looking to either build a Caldera chain or build on a Caldera chain. So I think while the space is of course moving to like more permissionless and more trustless platforms, I still think there's a big appetite to be really hands-on and supportive with different developers. And I know Albert and the GenLayer team, for example, right, of course, as someone building a rollup with us, we're very hands-on with, and making sure we're always providing a high level of support, both on the infrastructure side, but also like helping with things like go-to-market and things like this. And then similarly for developers that are looking to build within our ecosystems, right? We work with a lot of our existing rollups and chains that put us in contact with different developers that are building on their chains that might need some level of support to help get their smart contracts connected to the chain, right? Like help with the RPC, et cetera. Maybe some troubleshooting or help with the faucet. Like there's a wide variety of things that we can help with. So yeah, the best way to get in touch with us is always usually through Telegram and through our partner chains. So if you do have questions for us and you don't have a connection to us already, right? Like GenLayer can obviously connect us too. So yeah, like definitely, for us, we think it's important to continue to provide that level of support that we think is expected from developers building.
Is there a high degree of like customization that you would have to go if you're onboarding new people? Like, hey, I want to launch a Caldera rollup. Is there like a part where you're like, okay, we have this out of the box white label solution that everyone can use? Like, how much of customization is required on your side?
Yeah, totally depends on what they want to build. We definitely have, gotten pretty deep in the weeds with folks who want to do really custom things, whether it's actually on the protocol level or on the application level. So, it's really dependent and case by case. We've done, a lot of different customization work for folks like ApeChain with their native yield, or Rarible with embedded royalties. Even when GenLayer, right, like first approached us, they were thinking a lot about, how they think about alt-DA and how they think about their node system. So yeah, like it really just depends. Of course, we have our, out of the box standard vanilla solutions through the different stacks. But we're, really happy to actually get in the weeds with folks who are doing something maybe novel, because we think that's really going to be what, helps power this, as a really good example, this like next generation of applications that can be built using things that are unique. So yeah, it's we can go as far down the rabbit hole on customizations as physically possible.
Yeah. And now, Albert, if you consider, like people are wondering, hey, okay, we have this partnership between Caldera and GenLayer. Would actually a developer who opens the studio or later on the testnet would somehow get in touch with Caldera?
Well, I mean, any application that will be deployed on GenLayer, right? It will be going through the chain, and the chain is essentially this rollup, right? Which will be, in a way, I mean, I don't know how you say it technically, James, in terms of like, is it managed by Caldera? Like, what's the how do you say it?
Yeah, managed by Caldera. I think we like to say powered by Caldera. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's whatever you want it to be. But yeah, I think powered by Caldera, managed by Caldera is usually the best terms.
Makes sense. So yeah, all the transactions that are going to be going through the chain are going to be, going through the rollup, therefore powered by Caldera, right? And then also, I think that what we really need to find is like, how do we build these type of applications that will be useful for other chains, right? That then through the interoperability layer can do more, right? And I think that that's going to be the big deal, because then it basically means that we can. There's 1,000 blockchains out there. There's 1,000 times the number of transactions that every single intelligent contract will generate that are possible, right? So yeah, just how do we generate more transaction volume? That's going to be the key. Well, decision making volume, let's say.
Yeah. Okay, one more question by Tan. Tan is asking, I have a question. Yeah, okay. In a future where multiple AI agents operate autonomously across chains, how does GenLayer plan to handle conflicting reasoning between intelligent contracts running under different governance models or cultural contexts?
That's the magic of these ghost contracts, right? So you can have different consensus. For example, you could have one that is focused on banking, for example, so that you can have like specific APIs, specific SLAs, right? Service license agreements that can have specific rules that can then be called by other, say for example, one in the permissionless network, right? That can make a specific request, but the transactions between them, right? The actual moving of assets is happening on the chain, right? So it's quite similar to how it's happening right now with Bitcoin and Ethereum, right? Like you have that everybody just trusts they have one layer, right? Which is just the banking system, right? The blockchain. Yes. Here, like you can have one ghost contract that is from one chain going into another ghost contract from another chain, right? Transacting and calling and so on, right? So it's all about this separation of concerns, right? Because you can have, for example, one judiciary for, let's say, the US, right? That is very, very narrowly focused on that, and it's very, very, specific models, specific APIs, specific SLAs, specific participants, right? While the censorship-resistant, permissionless one wouldn't really have the same type of benefits, right? So,
yeah, amazing. Okay. Just being time conscious, I would like to chime into one thing that we've already talked about, which is use cases. I told you that we initially, or actually we still have a lot of use cases that developers can build. But let me ask you personally, like, maybe starting with Albert, what use case do you like the most, or even like just a feature? It could just be internet search. James, for instance, like if you think that the internet search of intelligent contracts is super powerful, and then kind of leave it to the people to build whatever they want. But yeah, let's start with Albert.
Okay, I think it's tricky because I can spoil him.
Yeah.
So to me, the way I look at it is like we're going into this agentic world. There's gonna be just billions, probably trillions of agents. Everybody will have a bunch of them working for them all day long. And when that happens, right, you will not know who you're dealing with, right? So you will have an agent that will be paying another agent that will be paying another agent to go and hire, get some hotel in your trip, right? So all this chaining of agents, right? The legal system that will operate with all of this, right? That can essentially enable this, right? I just don't think that it's going to be the current legal system just because of how slow and how expensive it is, right? And so one of the things that I think demonstrates the best, like what this actually means is, well, they're going to be doing services for each other, right? And a very simple type of contract that people I think will understand very easily is when an escrow, right? So you can have a contract that you put in money, and then somebody would need to decide whether this money, the piece of work has been fulfilled or not, right? So say Fiverr, Upwork, right? All these different things, right? I want you to do a research on something. I want you to find a bug, for example, right? Agents are going to be really good at that. Finding bugs for open source systems, writing content for specific projects, for example, right? There's going to be an economy of these agents that are going to be specializing on doing things, and they will want to get paid for that. So having an escrow that is intelligent enough to review whether the work was done properly or not, although it may not be the best at that because it's a more generic, like judge, yes?
Yeah.
So it's not so specialized, but at the same time, it's capable enough of reviewing whether the job was done or not to then release the funds. Yeah, that is to me like it's huge. It basically means tons of things, right? There's for example, in trade finance, this is a huge deal. There's a $2.5 trillion trade finance gap that will be immediately impacted by this, right? So yeah.
For everyone in trade finance watching, note Gen layer. James.
Yeah. I have three that really come to my head. One is similarly in traditional finance, but maybe the other two I'll touch on is I think prediction markets and also information. And what I mean by information is I think the last 40 years, right, it was really important to get all information and data on a computer. I think now with blockchain, it's going to be really important to verify all that information and give it value. And what I mean by that is, anyone can go on to Wikipedia, right, and write anything about anything. Being able to verify and tokenize that information, I think, is going to give information a lot more value, and also sort of have information be valuable through the opportunity of I should say the ability to verify it. So I think that's really important, and I think that also kind of is why I suggested prediction markets earlier.
Yeah,
because I think we've seen this already with folks like Polymarket, right? Being really the trusted systems to understand news cycles and what's really happening and what people really think about these certain events. And I think using these AI smart contracts or intelligent smart contracts are going to be ways to power that in a way that isn't possible yet today. So I think this, I take information super broadly. It can mean prediction markets. It can also just mean information that we've been spending the last 40 years trying to put on a computer, and now someone needs to verify it, right? It can't just be Google searches and going through the 40 links, right, that come up. I think we can build agents that can actually verify this information. And I think, the information that is real will be valuable, both through tokenization and where it's coming from, and having trusted sources to verify that information. I really see that being something that actually isn't talked about enough, because everyone just trusts the internet as it stands so much. But I think specifically actually what GenLayer is building can really help us understand what is verified, valued information that's real. And then from an application standpoint, I think that'll really help power prediction markets specifically, but a lot of other things as well.
And I would add making also sense of the information, right? Not only verifying it, but also like, okay, is it, through the trajectory of all the information we already have and through the knowledge we already have, that's kind of where AI models come into play. Like, does this piece of information make sense? Or is it kind of, like, I mean, in the US, one term that came up a lot of times, fake news, like, is it fake news? Is it true? Like, you don't know. Like, can one LLM judge who is probably biased because the developers don't even know, what this thing's coming up, tell you if this piece of information is true and accurate? Going back into our vision. Albert, please.
There was like the earlier version, like the earlier vision for GenLayer, like how we kind of like ideate at GenLayer, right, was very much related to this. When I think anyone should come in and try to build this, right, which is who chooses what gets written or not in Wikipedia, right? Right now, there's a decision maker system, right, that essentially decides whether you should have or not, your entry in Wikipedia, what it should be saying, what is valid or not, and so on, right? Very easily with GenLayer, what you can do is essentially have a system that basically is, some agents that are on the computer of the user that are just like crawling the internet, searching for specific information for which there's a bounty. And then when they find something that is not already in the database, sending it to the network to essentially validate and structure, right? So then you can essentially give a bounty for people to be searching for specific sets of information from these specific data sources, and then the network itself deciding whether this information should be appended or not into the data structure, right? So this is totally doable, doesn't exist today, as I know, and it's absolutely an opportunity, I think, that, just to free information, like James was saying, right? Like those could be bounties, those could be tokens, those could be rewarded and used for many different things, even composable. And so, to me, that is absolutely one of the main use cases, I think, that we'll see.
Amazing. Well, thank you guys. As we're approaching the end of the live stream, I would just, kindly ask you for what's the CTA? Like James, if you want to start with Caldera, where can people get onboarded? What are you searching for? What are the collaborations and partnerships that you guys want to get involved with? How do developers approach you? And in parallel, I'm also going to share the POAP Mint link for everyone. So have your POAP app open and be fast, because it's, as always, first come, first serve on all live streams. James, please.
Yeah. So I think it's three things, right? One, if you're a project, company, team looking to launch your own chain, launch your own rollup, and have sort of like that dedicated block space to build a really strong application layer, obviously come find Caldera. You can come to our website, right? We actually have like public Calendly links. So, we really want to be available and flexible to meet with anybody at any time. Secondly, if you're a developer that's looking to build on a Caldera chain, please come talk to us. There's always a place for you. And there is a lot of different verticals that exist. And of course, if you want to build on GenLayer, definitely come talk to us if you're not already talking to them. And then thirdly is users. Anyone who is looking to interact with the Caldera ecosystem, right? We have our portal that's live. We have Caldera usernames that have recently been launched. You can find that on our socials. So you can mint your .era name actually across different chains using the meta layer. And we'll have more to come on Catalyst there as well. So yeah, like those are the best places to find us on our site, on our socials, obviously at caldera.xyz. And our Twitter handle is just caldera.xyz. So yeah, come find us there. And Tony, Albert, thanks so much for having me. This was really really great.
Thank you too. Albert, final CTA from your side.
Sure. I would say, spread the word. I think that not everybody knows yet that there's a new toy factory in town, right? And, maybe you want toys and you will find new toys here. Maybe you want to make new toys, right? We will help you with that too, right? So yeah, just, I feel like the market still doesn't really understand what GenLayer is. I understand it's not, the typical thing, right? But like we're working as hard as we can to make sure that everybody can understand it and to make sure that we will be able to use it soon, right? So just, spread the word.
And the POAPs are good for the Discord community progression system, so mint the POAPs as well.
Right.
Okay, amazing. Well, Albert, James, thank you so much. Thanks for
You both.
tuning in, everyone.
Everyone.
And see you very soon. Thanks,
Thank
and
you.
have a nice day.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.